Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Oh, I don't care what Mama don't allow, gonna draw mine modern anyhow. Mama don't allow no architecture around here.
Welcome to US Modernist Radio. Join host George Smart and Frank King as they talk and laugh with people who enjoy, own, create, dream about, preserve, love, and hate modernist architecture, the most exciting and controversial buildings in the world. Show your support by reviewing us at iTunes and visiting US Modernist Massive Archives at usmodernist.org. And now, the world's biggest fan of Richard Meyer's smarter brother, Oscar Mayer, Frank King.
Yeah, Oscar Mayer. I'll take 2 with mayonnaise, chili, and onions. I know mayonnaise is awful, but I love it on a hot dog. You know, Palm Springs has a huge architecture event every February called Modernism Week. It's a fascinating array of architecture, lecture, parties, tours, exhibits, and the occasional plastic surgery gone awry. You're drooling. Look, you're drooling. Our own George Smart was there this year, talking with today's guests who spoke during Modernism Week. We joined George at the Hotel Skylark, talking with Midwest modern fans Todd Zeiger and Marsh Davis of Indiana Landmarks, and Jennifer Sandy, Senior Field Officer for the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Oh, wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall for that conversation? Hey, you can be! Support for U.S. Modernist Radio comes from Mod Homes Realty. If you're having a hard time finding or selling a modernist home, Sarah Sonk of Mod Homes Realty is a wonderful, intelligent, lovely single lady who loves Garth Brooks, The Notebook, tiki bars, and pomegranate martinis. No, wait a minute. That's her Tinder profile. Sorry, Sarah. Sarah Sonk is a real estate agent who gets modern like you do. She's totally into it and has the expertise, experience, and track record to close your deal. ModHomeRealty.com or 919-601-7339. And also brought to you by Quality Fabricators of Benson, your one-stop shop for anything modernistic. They got your flat roofs, your big windows. They'll even put in one of them European beignets in your bathroom. I hear they go great with French roast coffee. The boys at QFab work for half the cost of real professionals who actually have education and experience. I mean, how hard can it be? Call Gene at 919-355-8837. That's 919-355-8837. Best to call before 6 p.m. when he takes his medication. They take cash, Visa, MasterCard, Amex, and, of course, Bitcoin, the Red Bull of currencies. Now, let's go to Palm Springs and Modernism Week.
This is George Smart with US Modernist Radio, and we are back at the poolside at the Hotel Skylark in Palm Springs for Modernism Week. My guest this afternoon is Todd Zeiger with Indiana Landmarks. He is very much involved with a project called the House of Tomorrow, one of the seminal new houses of the 20th century designed by Fred Keck. Welcome, Todd.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the invite.
You're welcome. So, the House of Tomorrow is still very futuristic, isn't it? I mean, it hasn't gotten old.
It has not gotten old, and many of the things that it was thinking, Keck was thinking about at the time, have yet to be realized or are part of our homes today.
Like what?
Inside garages. He thought we'd be parking our cars inside. In 1933, that was a pretty novel idea. He also thought we'd all have airplanes we'd park inside. I'm still waiting on mine to park at home, but who knows, maybe next week. But yeah, built-in dishwasher.
Really?
One of the first electric dishwashers of its kind from General Electric was in the kitchen, still there, and will be restored as part of the project. So many of forward-thinking things.
Now, where is the House of Tomorrow located?
It is currently located in kind of along the southern shore of Lake Michigan in Beverly Shores in the Indiana Dunes National Lake Shore. So if you go to Chicago and come down around the coast into Indiana, it's right there along the lake.
And was there original client, or did Keck do it just to demonstrate the future?
The house was built as part of the 1933-34 Century of Progress in Chicago, and moved across the lake in 1935 at the close of the fair. A developer bought that house along with a number of others and moved them over to Indiana across the lake, if you can imagine that.
Right.
Big barges, moved them over there and set them up much like at the fair, where he toured people through hoping to entice them to buy some land in Beverly Shores to build their little house at. So Keck built this house as part of the fair and charged people 10 cents a piece to come through this House of Tomorrow at the fair. About 1 million people saw it then. And really helped set in their minds, people that visited, what we might be living in the future.
And what happened to the house after that? Did the Beverly Shores development work? Did it take off?
Actually, it did. He sold out all of his lots, sold the House of Tomorrow along with some other homes that he moved there from the Century of Progress, and moved on to do some more developments in Illinois and other places. And so the house became a private home. And was lived in until the 1960s when the National Park bought it and then leased it until the late 1990s when we became involved with the property.
So by then, was it all crispy clean or had it deteriorated a bit?
Oh, that would be magnificent if it was crispy clean. That would be a word that I would not associate with the House of Tomorrow then or now. No, it had been, we'll just say it had been well lived in for many years. And so it had suffered its share of updated decorating, and so it survived in its essence. Its form looked the same. It's a 12-sided house, and so it sits on top of this dune, and you would definitely know it was the House of Tomorrow, but certainly it had some changes on the inside and outside over the years that would naturally come after 70, 80 years of living.
Now, what is it made out of?
It is made out of, and that's partly what makes it so interesting and an early pioneer in its design. It is a steel structure with a concrete system of floor, and posts in the corners of this 12-sided, which allows it to be all glass all the way around. So that's why we call it the term of America's first glass house. So it is steel, concrete, and glass. At the fair in '33, it was clad with what we call it was called fennel board. And then in 1934, he changed the outside to a copper cladding. So that's what it's made of. Steel, concrete, glass, and then copper siding.
So is this a house like the Lustron where you put magnets on your pictures and then just stick it to the wall?
Oh, I love Lustron houses. They're one of my favorite little houses. But no, the inside of the house had Carrera glass walls, drywall walls. So the inside, the shell, the core of the house itself was very modern in its feel. It was what we call modern today drywall, early form of drywall.
Okay.
And then a Carrera glass, which was a polished glass in black and gray glass. So a very modern look. It was not an interior metal like a Lustron house. Very familiar with those. No, it was a very modern home that would feel today, if you put it up in Palm Springs, it would feel like it would be something from the mid-century, but yet 30 years before anything was really thought of.
And was it insulated? How did it keep itself hot and cold?
Great question, and one of the challenges of being a forward-thinking design, they learned some things from this design, and being a 12-sided glass house did gain some heat during the summer, and so they ended up having to close a couple of the rooms, but it did have a modern air conditioning system. Modern at the time, cooling and heating. Unfortunately, it could not keep up with that heat gain. So when Keck designed the house, he had spec'd what we call thermal pane glass, 2 pieces of glass separated by some air. Because it was a temporary fair house, they just put in 1 piece of glass. What do you call that? I call it a solarium. So it heated very well. And Keck became known for his solar work later on in his career, partly because he realized that using large sheets of glass, you could actually start to heat homes. So the House of Tomorrow began his experimentation with solar heating and cooling almost by happenstance in this case.
Now, as the caretaker for this house, is this one of these situations where it was built for like $5,000 and it takes $14 million to fix it?
You're close on the one side and hopefully not close on the other. We'll put it that way. Certainly, it was around several thousands of dollars to construct. Although he made back his money with this 10-cent admission over the cost of the fair. So he did very well on the House of Tomorrow with that respect. And because he did well on the House of Tomorrow, actually built a second house at the fair called the Crystal House, which was another all glass and steel house. Didn't do so well on that one from a tourist standpoint, but we expect it to be about a $2 million restoration. So certainly multiples of what it originally cost, but we feel its importance in architectural history and what it can tell for future is important to save this house and restore it back to what it looked like as Keck designed.
Yeah, I recall from visiting Fallingwater, the original house up there was like $130,000 to build and $12 million to keep from falling into the water.
It's funny how you can build them originally and then there's so much more to restore them, but cost of materials goes up and you want to do it right. And one of the aspects of this project that we're excited about is actually taking it and making it not necessarily a new house of tomorrow, but incorporating a lot of new technology into this restoration to showcase what we can do with newer types of systems, respect Keck's design, restore that part of it, but incorporate new systems, green technologies, and really continue this theme of a house of tomorrow in many respects moving forward as well.
Will I get a flying car?
I will hope it may take that long to get it restored. Who knows? But we probably won't have an airplane in it. But yeah.
Now, can people visit this now?
We do open the house for tours, and May 13th and 14th of this year, we're going to have it open as part of a tour at the Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore. And then again on October 15th, we're going to have it open as part of tours. So at least once a year, it is open as part of our agreement with the park, and it's part of a grouping of houses from the fair that we've been a part of restoring.
Okay.
So yeah, absolutely. People can watch our website, indianalandmarks.org, for those tickets. They'll go on sale in the ones in April are already available, called Logs to Lustrons. You mentioned Lustrons earlier. We do a tour of what we call 100 years of architectural history in one park, in this one park in Indiana. And so the house will be open as part of that in May. And then in October, we're doing an experience for the Century of Progress houses, and it'll be open then too.
Now, what happened to the Crystal House?
It was because he did not make his money back on the admissions, was taken apart and sold for materials and whatnot at the end of the fair to pay back his investment.
Okay.
So it was lost.
That's too bad. A lot of those great demonstration houses just disappeared.
Pretty typical. World's fairs, they were just meant to be temporary, although some buildings survive from other World's fairs. Famously in Chicago, the Field Museum and others around in that area. But most times World Fair properties were demolished or lost over time. But we've got in Indiana 5 from the Century of Progress, this one and 4 others that survived.
Well, this will be a great place to visit, and you can find information about it at indianalandmarks.org.
Correct.
I want to thank you, Todd, for stopping by.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Hey, don't go anywhere. There's more to come with Marsh Davis and Jennifer Sandy.
This is George Smart with US Modernist Radio, and we are poolside at the Hotel Skylark in sunny Palm Springs, California. At least it's sunny today. It was pouring down rain last week, and it's going to pour down more rain on Monday, but we're here in that sweet spot right in between. Looking up at these beautiful mountains and feeling the breezes come by. And you've got to come out here one year if you haven't done it already. My guest this afternoon, Jennifer Sandy, is a senior field officer for the National Trust for Historic Preservation, currently living in Chicago, and she works with the National Treasures Program, which we'll talk about a little bit later. I also have with me Marsh Davis. He is president of Indiana Landmarks. He has a long career in preservation and successfully saved several wonderful buildings. So thank you both for coming.
Thank you, George.
Thank
what
you.
a pleasure to be here.
Okay. So let's start out with about this National Treasures. I mean, I remember that was like a movie with Nicolas Cage, and he was digging up Civil War relics, but your program is a little bit different.
Yes, it is a little bit different. The National Treasures Program is a signature program of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And we are a national nonprofit that's focused on saving historic places around the country. So the National Treasures Program is it's really the way that we focus our work on very significant, nationally significant places around the country that have some type of threat that they're facing or some type of opportunity where the National Trust can get involved, working very closely with partners like Indiana Landmarks in this instance, to help save important historic places so that people can appreciate them for future generations.
So what are you working on saving right now?
We have a portfolio of about 80 national treasures. It's a revolving portfolio, and they're all around the country. So we have really a diverse group of projects. We're working on the modern homes, such as the House of Tomorrow. We'll work on archaeological sites of importance in the West. We work on places where George Washington slept, like
Really?
Happy Retreat.
What are some of the specific buildings that you work with that are like super in danger now?
Well, one of the properties that we're working on right now that is in danger is the Mitchell Park Domes in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay.
They were designed in 1965, and they are the world's only conoidal domes that are being used for horticultural, for greenhouse purposes, and that means cone shape. They're not like a Bucky dome. They're actually a little pointy on top. There's 3 of them, and they have different plant environments in each one. And they have really suffered from some deferred maintenance over the years, and they need some restoration work. So we are working with local partners and with elected officials and decision makers in Milwaukee to try to steer that towards a path of rehabilitating the Mitchell Park domes, keeping them so that kids can come and learn about plants, and people that have their weddings there. They're really very iconic landmarks in Milwaukee.
And what are these domes made out of?
They are, there's a concrete it's sort of a superstructure, and then glass.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so do you have to take it apart to fix it, or can you fix it in little sections?
You don't have to take it apart to fix it. It can be repaired, and we're working on getting some expert opinions on how that could happen now. But it is possible to make the repairs. And
how long will that process take?
Well, first we have to convince everyone that they're worth saving.
Oh, I see. So it's not a done deal.
No, they're in danger. They really need people to stand up for them and talk about how important they are.
Well, make sure that you send me lots of information about this, and I'll get it out to all our readers.
Thank you.
Now, do you consider the Farnsworth House to be one of the national treasures?
Yes, we do. In fact, the National Trust for Historic Preservation, we are the owners of the Farnsworth House, and we are working on that property because of the flooding that it has experienced over the years. We're working on finding a way to prevent future damage to the home from flooding. So that's a big project of ours right now.
So, what does Jeff Bridges have to do with all this?
Well, I wish I could tell you, but I don't know him personally.
I understand he's making a movie about the Farnsworth House.
As well. We have heard that as well.
With Maggie Gyllenhaal.
We would be just as excited about that as you would if that becomes true. Yes.
Yeah, and he's going to play Mies van der Rohe.
That's what I hear.
And Maggie's going to be Edith Farnsworth.
That's what I hear. It'd be a great story. Really hope that happens.
It seems like you guys should, get on this train and help publicize all your great work, because people are going to want to care about that house.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal place to visit. If your listeners have never been, I would encourage them to go. It's really very remarkable.
Now, Marsh, I understand that in Indiana, you had a successful documentary recently called Columbus, about the Columbus area. Do you know about that film?
Well, that was not one of Indiana Landmark's projects.
Okay.
But Columbus is clearly it is an epicenter of modern architecture. Per capita, great, serious works of modern architecture. There's probably no other place in the world quite like it.
Do you do much work with Columbus at all?
Yes, we do. In fact, I would say one of the most wonderful projects I've had the privilege of working on was the Miller House, which was Eero Saarinen, and home of J. Irwin Miller. It's a National Historic Landmark. But when J. Irwin Miller's widow, Xenia, was still alive, she was in failing health, and her son, Will, contacted me and said, we've got this, we got to chart a future for this house. So we put together a charrette and brought in some wonderful people, including Robert Stern and Michael von Valkenburg and Charles Birnbaum. We looked not just at the Saarinen house, but the Kiley landscape.
Oh, the Kiley landscape is amazing.
And our goal was to find an institutional taker for it, and we were successful in recruiting the Indianapolis Museum of Art, which took it on. It's been one of their most successful programs, but it's an absolutely spectacular, iconic house, and that was something that we were so pleased to be a part of finding the solution for. So yeah, and we worked. That was several years ago, and we're still working with Columbus very closely. Most recently on the First Christian Church, which was the very first modernist commission.
Yes,
that
was by Saarinen and his father.
That was the father.
The father.
Ely
okay.
did that. Yeah. Trying to work to build a friends group to help support not just the religious function of the building, but to support the architectural
function of the building as well,
and the character, and see that it doesn't get diminished. Yeah.
Now, here in Palm Springs, when you talk about modernist architecture, there's really no one left to preach to because it seems like everybody's into it here. In other states, in North Carolina, it's a much harder sell sometimes. How is it in Indiana? How is it to get people to look at modern homes and structures as being something worth saving?
Well, at Indiana Landmarks, we're finding it just. I think it's happening across the country. It's a hot topic now. It is really one of the most appealing parts of historic preservation. We have, as many organizations do that around the country, we have a subset of our members which we call Indiana Modern, and their function of that, we call it an affinity group. And these are people who are members of our organization, but they really want to have a deep focus on modernism. And they serve as advocates for endangered modernist places, but there's a lot of celebration. We have a tour every year called Back to the Future Tour, which is very popular. We have it 1 year in Indianapolis, and then another year we'll be out in one of the other smaller cities around, but extremely popular. I think it's our second largest attended event that we have. So we're not awash in modernism like you are here, but I think that in some ways that makes it more special when you find these little gems that are isolated. And I think, how did that end up in Indiana? And so we get there's a lot of interest in it. I think maybe because it is a little bit rarer than it is in some other places.
Well, our group took a tour of Indiana a year or so ago, and we're very much impressed by the new hospital that was built there. We got a tour.
The Eskenazi Hospital in Indianapolis
was just, I mean, it's like I wanted to check in. It was such an impressive building. It didn't really look like a hospital.
Right. Yeah, it is wonderful. And, we just, in Indianapolis, Cummins, which, of course, was the origins of the architectural legacy in Columbus, opened a building in downtown Indianapolis last month. It was really... It's by Deborah Burke, and really it's ratcheting up the quality of architecture. It's that Miller legacy from Columbus is now working its way throughout the state in a bigger way, which is really good.
Well, Indiana is a great place to go and visit. I hope you all will take a trip up there. Look up indianalandmarks.org. My guests have been Jennifer, Sandy, and Marsh Davis, and I hope you guys have a great time out here in Palm Springs.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Hey, if you'd like to travel to Palm Springs and hang out with the cool kids, plus George Smart, next February during Modernism Week, send an email to george@ncmodernist.org. US Modernist Radio is underwritten by Sarah Song, the real estate agent who loves modernist houses just as much as you do. 919-601-7339. And by the fine gentlemen at Quality Fabricators of Benson. Okay, take us out, Tom.
Thanks, Frank. Visit USModernist.org for more information about today's guests. US Modernist Radio is edited by Soundtracks Recording Studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. Our theme song was performed by George Smart and Robinson Earl. US Modernist Radio is a production of North Carolina Modernist Houses, a nonprofit educational archive for the documentation, preservation, and promotion of modernist residential design. I'm Tom Guild. Show your support by writing a great review of us on iTunes. George and Frank and I will be back in 2 weeks, especially for our fans in Andor, Bajor, Betazed, Cardassia Prime, Kronos the Klingon homeworld, and of course, Vulcan. Live long and prosper.